Luke does not know what the topic of the show is going to be about, but it's going to be a good one. Hello, everybody, hello. Welcome to the special edition 1,000 subscriber / freedom edition of Copy That. It is the 4th of July. Happy birthday, America, and or the UK.
Yeah.
Boo. Today, we are going to be talking about one of the things that we did recently. We talked about how to get started. And the last several episodes have been sort of dancing around like how one should begin and how one should kick off their copywriting career. Relatively recently, we also had an episode where we said, well, if we could go back in time and talk to each other and talk to ourselves at the beginning of our career, what would we say? Today, we're going to continue that thread, and the conversation we're going to have today is about, well, what do we do next? If we want to take our career to the next level or go from beginner to intermediate stage, what is the advice we would give? What would we tell ourselves and or you, the gawking rabble watching right now, which we love you. Thank you very much for 1,000 subs. You're adorable. I appreciate it.
Special for so many reasons, this episode. We got Independence Day, real life, 1,000 subs, Patreon hit a milestone. Go to patreon.com / the Copy That Show, where you can get stuff that we'll plug later.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thank you for joining us either on twitch.tv / the Copy That Show and or 10,000 years in the future on youtube.com / copy that. Or if you are one of our amazing, beautiful, sexy, sensual patrons on patreon.com / the Copy That Show.
They do be sexy.
Yeah. We are going to do an episode today talking about the intermediate stage. And then we're going to try to do a bunch of bonus content this week while we're all here, except for Luke, who's not here.
This is all still very new, and my body clock is actually all right.
Well, that's because I got him absolutely drunk last night.
It was productive drunk.
What was it? I don't remember.
You can't confirm that because you don't remember, but we will tell you it was productive.
It's been a joy to watch Alex. He got to have his first blueberry. He got to have his first piece of American bacon. We took him out on the town last night and we had American drinks and we made American friends.
Yeah, so there's been a lot. So
little baby boys growing up.
Yeah, I know.
So where would we start if we are going from the beginner to the intermediate stage? How does one level up their career?
You can only trade so many hours for so much money. If you set an hourly rate for someone, the only way to make more money from that is either working more hours or increasing your rates. So that's like a natural starting point, and I think for most people it would be raising rates. I know a lot of people who watch us obviously on Upwork, have client work, they will charge by project or hourly. I think a big point is you're only beginner or intermediate in your mind. Really, I think the biggest and the most tangible step is making sure that you have in some way increased your money, right? Because like if you're not getting more money from it, then is there any point in saying I'm intermediate?
All right, we're taking the selfie. Lean in. There you go.
Oh, I love it.
Luke, you had a similar trajectory where you started out by taking any job that you possibly could and accepting any amount of money that you possibly could. And then once you had enough under your belt, you started charging more, correct?
That's right.
And so what was that point for you? What was the Rubicon, the threshold that you crossed where you were like, okay, it's time to raise the rates?
Whenever I take on a new job, I sort of think about like what my likelihood of success is. And once I feel like, okay, like these jobs I can do well, like I perform well, people are happy whenever I do them, it's time to make myself more expensive, right? Because like I feel like I've verified, like I've sort of shown, I've proven myself that I can do whatever I said I was going to do. So now I feel more comfortable with charging more amounts of money for that, right? And I can argue and I can defend myself to a client and say like, look, I've done this type of job 10 times. So you can either hire someone who's new, who's going to be cheap, or you hire someone who's more experienced, who's going to be a little bit more expensive. So that's one way that I've always framed it in my mind that's helped me charge more money. I do think it's a different answer to like what makes you go to the next stage from beginner to intermediate, but I do think it's part of it.
The money thing is definitely a big thing for me. When you're first starting out, a lot of it is, okay, I'm just going to take whatever I can get because you don't feel like you can get a lot. I think once you're at the point at which you're consistently making enough money to feel like, okay, I'm actually making a living doing this. This is something I can truly call my job. I think that's one part of that first leveling up process. The other thing though is definitely more of a mindset shift like you're talking about, Luke, where once you start getting the confidence to feel like the jobs you're getting are, there's no question of whether or not you can do them or complete them or succeed at them, I think that's another big step, because there's a lot of anxiety over just doing the work. And I think to overcome that and get to the point at which you're thinking beyond the job, you're thinking, okay, what is this entire project going to entail? How can I sort of level up the services I'm offering within this project?
You will have clients that you take on early on in your career who you will charge the same rate as when you started, and then you'll simultaneously you'll have new clients who you're charging like 5-10 times more. You're only as intermediate or professional or expert as the person paying you thinks you are. If you start the relationship off with someone by kind of going, oh, I'm a beginner, I'm kind of new, I'm only charging like, $15 an hour or whatever, then I think it can be difficult to get out of that mindset for the client. If you start with a new client and you start charging, say, $30 an hour, or the equivalent thereof, have you changed much in that time? Like maybe it was just a case of being more confident and saying, right, I'm gonna charge more.
There are two different curves. There's competence, your ability to do a thing, and your knowledge and experience of doing the thing. And then there's the, how should I say, I guess market value curve. It's almost like stocks in a way, where, sorry, I mean, what a company does, how much a company earns, versus what a company is trading for on the stock market, oftentimes those numbers have little, if anything, to do with each other. And so you have to think of yourself sort of like that, where, your jobs, the amount you can charge for them, it's going to be variable in the short term, but it should always be trending up as you gain more experience, as you gain more competence. That number is going to come from in you. And so here's the thing. I've seen complete newbies roll out of the gate and charge $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 for a single project. I was one of those people. But then there are other newbies who get started and they charge $10 for an absurdly large project. And guess what? Once you've done that project, it becomes a spec piece, a piece that can go into your portfolio. Well, now you can use that as leverage to get a job. The amount that you charge has nothing to do with your actual skill level. It really has everything to do with your confidence and your ability to deliver, because obviously if you overcharge for something and then under-deliver, well, you're not going to get hired again. And you're also probably going to get a bad review, and then you won't be able to use that leverage.
When do people know that they've reached a point where they could confidently say, oh, skill level wise, I am now intermediate, I'm no longer a beginner?
I don't think you need to be constantly applying for getting gigs that kind of push the limits of what you feel comfortable with. And so if you start out and you are doing emails for small businesses, and that's all you do for 6 months, and you never get outside of that, and you get super comfortable doing that, you're never gonna know, okay, could I do it for a slightly different business or for a business in a different niche? And so until you do that, you're gonna be limited to that very small box and not actually have a very good understanding of what potential you have there. Part of getting from that beginner to intermediate stage is going to require that people become comfortable being uncomfortable and pushing their boundaries and growing.
Do you think experience is a prerequisite to this? So for example, another very good friend of ours, Chris, we were speaking the other day about, the kind of experience and having real life clients, having real spec pieces. And Chris is very good, right? Like, even though he's classed himself as a beginner, it's like, I think he could justifiably call himself like intermediate. But if there's that lack of experience there, do you think that should hold someone back if they've never had a client? So if you've been studying copy and say creating spec pieces for a year, could you comfortably call yourself intermediate? Obviously we're getting into semantics here, but I still think it's an important point since this is about how we got to intermediate level.
One of the biggest things that hold people back, especially when they're getting started, is themselves. The reason why that's so, the word deleterious comes to mind. I'll use the word pernicious as well, harmful, if you will, is because you can read all the books on copy. You can read 10,000 sales letters. None of it is going to truly prepare you for an actual job.
Being a good copywriter is not about just being good at copy. Having those real life skills like dealing with clients, understanding what a job really entails when you read a job description. Yeah. Maybe that's part of being an intermediate copywriter, is growing that understanding and being able to navigate that stuff.
What do you guys think in terms of like that initial, like, what do I charge people?
Work out how much you want monthly, then estimate how long the project is probably going to take you, and then don't charge any less than that. Like that's all you've got to do. If this isn't covering the cost of living, what's the point, right? For me, it was very much test on your own. Like, even if someone's not paid you to do a project, if you are wondering like, oh, how long is something like this going to take? If you're thinking that right now, like, oh, I don't know how long doing copy for a website would take, or doing stuff, like, fucking write one, right? Do a spec piece. If you ever have to get a baseline for how much is a whole website, like, you know, rewrite gonna take me with say 10 pages, just test it. That is the best answer. Manheim said, I want that funnel t-shirt. Unfortunately, that was limited edition, and we use urgency and scarcity
organically
for real.
For real.
Yeah, like this ain't coming back. Although this one's probably worth more because Sean's had it on his body. So
I own 2 of them, and both of them have touched my nipples. In your mind, you're always going to have that niggling imposter syndrome. You need to be able to charge more and charge what you're worth. And a lot of what you're worth is going to be letting the market decide. And you can't let the market decide if you're always charging people $10 an hour.
Most businesses will care about results. They like, if you can prove, like, you know, like Sean was saying, if you can prove to them that you've increased sales somehow, like, people will reward you and be like, shit, this is really good.
Luke, how are you doing?
Pretty good. Where did that come from?
I just wanted to know, like, how are you doing, buddy? Sorry, my knee is touching Rod's butt. It was kind of nice.
Not the first time.
Oh my god, do you remember last night when we were trying to teach him how to high five?
What are you talking about? Wait, what?
Like, come back into this. Come on. I don't even remember this conversation.
Okay, so let's say we're meeting for the first time, and I come in, I'm like, hey man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, see if Alex orders. Hey man, how's it going?
That, yeah.
Okay, and so the first time we did this, we kind of just landed here, and then Alex just like pulls away, and he kept doing this to strangers, and I was shocked and appalled. I was like, oh my god, that's so uncool and lame, because when you meet someone as an American, you're like this, and you just come in naturally, and on the way out you have the firm squeeze, that manliness test, and he was not doing it. He was not doing it at all. He looked weak. He looked soft.
I am weak. I am those
he
things.
Looked British.
Yeah.
And that's the worst thing you can look like on Independence Day.
To quote Rod at one point, he did say, Alex, your handshake is lame as fuck.
I honestly don't remember any of this. So
I'm sure
we
you don't.
We had a whole lesson, like, we had you practice on a stranger.
Definitely.
Oh, fucking hell. That was
Here,
why he
that's
said
right.
2 minutes.
What is that? A water bottle?
Hey everybody.
Noah, if you're watching this, I apologize. Leave some of them in if you think that they're spicy and valuable. Do you mind if we use that? Okay, awesome.
Do you mind if he came in here knowing there was a live stream with a shot, so it's great.
People were asking for it, Alex.
The people took me. I'm touching them. I'm touching John's nipples.
You guys can't see this, but John is so sunburned that his nipples are the same color as the rest of his chest right now. The question
Oh yeah, we've gone off again. All right.
was, what would we suggest that a beginner do to kind of throw value or additional value into projects they're working on? So the example was, if they're working on an email sequence, when can they start suggesting things like timeframes for emails or what sequences they should have?
My answer is just straight away, if you feel you have the confidence for it.
Yeah.
You know, the kind of formula I use really for suggesting anything, not just for this, but what, why, how. So like, what is the thing? Why do you want to do that thing? And then how would that work? So in this case, it would be, I suggest actually that we send this out like an hour after the first one instead of like a day. You say that's because like studies and results show that if you can kind of hit someone in that the same day, they're going to be far more likely to convert than if you give them time to, you know, like sleep on it and don't, you know, strike while the iron's hot. That's your why. And then the how is, we can do this, but you know, you're already using like Klaviyo. All we need to do is just put it into a sequence, put a timer in there. I'll go in and do it if you give me the logins. So you're providing everything. You've like backed up your suggestion, and then you are also offering like the least resistance to doing it.
He's doing a selfie too.
I'm just live streaming to my fans.
If you are very, very new and your client knows that you're new, sometimes it can feel a little bit more difficult to have that assertive this is the thing, here's why I know, and feel like they're gonna trust you on that. But one thing you can do is kind of come to that offer from a place of curiosity or asking. And so if Alex is my client and I'm like, hey, what kind of time frames do you guys usually use? Have you ever tried doing sending your second email an hour afterwards? And
no, we haven't.
Yeah, well, you know, one of the things I'm thinking is that if we send it just an hour afterwards, if people have engaged with that first email, having that immediate second reply come in may up engagement and click-through rate for the second one.
Who the fuck do you think you are suggesting things to me? All right, you're fired.
And this is why people quit.
That wouldn't happen, guys.
What the hell? If you're going to add upsells, like for example, you've been hired to write an email left or a sales page, you know, you say, hey, can I write an email sequence for the sales page? That's a no-brainer because obviously they need a thank you email, they need confirmation, they need a fulfillment email, they need an engagement sequence afterwards, like to teach people how to use it. On youtube.com/copythat or the patreon.com/thecopythatshow, Bridget, the marketing director that I interviewed, one of the things that she said that, you know, I discovered in my career and she discovered as a marketer was you want that next conversion point, that cross-sell, to be becoming way earlier in the sequence than you even anticipate, possibly even in the first email that you send to other people, whether it's a cold email sequence or whether it's a sales email for a client or things like that. Make sure that there's another conversion point like really early in that sequence. One of the things that Agora started doing that actually made them a ton of money was that in the confirmation emails that, hey, thank you for your payment, you're awesome, here's your stuff that you ordered, and you're going to be processing your credit card. They put just a little space ad, an insert ad at the bottom of those emails.
Yeah.
And now they made a ton more money doing it. Put an ad in your thank you emails.
Yes.
Boom. It's like, it doesn't take a genius to figure out like, oh, hey, cool. And like some people, especially copywriters, especially like newer marketers, they're hesitant to sell. And here's the thing, as long as your selling is unobtrusive and congruent with what you did, people are going to generally actually not balk, not be upset about being sold after they've already been sold something. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. Say, for example, you're being tasked to sell a book, and it's a $7 free plus shipping kind of offer. One of the easiest things you can do as a copywriter is say, hey, why don't we get somebody on Fiverr to read the book, and we'll create a little text file of that. That'll be the audiobook. Why don't we add a little bump offer on the order form? Click this button for $20. We'll send you the audiobook version of this book. Not only does that make more money for the business, but people love buying the same thing in different mediums and packaged in different ways. And so that's a very important thing to keep in mind as a copywriter, especially when you're thinking about, you know, what should you charge or when should you be charging for value adds. Because once you know what's on the menu, well, then you can start going to your clients and just saying like, you know, from the get-go, hey, why don't we do this? Why don't we test this? Why don't we, et cetera, et cetera. English is not my native language and find copy to be quite basic and vanilla. How do I get better at metaphors, linking, and writing in a fun way? Okay, just to recap really quickly for everybody, we talked about the money aspect. A good way to advance from being a beginner is to simply charge more and to justify what you charge. Okay. The next thing of that is results. Okay, results is a major thing that delineates beginner, intermediate, and senior. And once you have results that you can prove, then you can move from beginner to intermediate. Okay, great. The next thing that we should talk about is actual competency. If you are a beginner or if you're a newbie and you're just starting out and you want to learn how to write copy better, one of the best places to start is with bullets. And the reason why you want to start with bullets is because it's not quite like body copy. The actual register, the way that you write in a bullet, is more akin to like a subheadline or a headline than actually like, you know, this is the thing. Here is the thing that is the thing. And so you have to adopt a different sort of logic and using coded language in a way that you might not be used to. And so because a bullet is so short, so compact, it's a really good opportunity to practice writing things that are very punchy and also developing emotional language and using intrigue. Like these are all things that if you want to write a good bullet, it is absolutely 100% necessary to make sure that every single one is not confusing, not unbelievable, not boring, that every single one is unique, useful, ultra specific, and urgent. I mean, just to give an example, we have a new mentee on patreon.com/thecopythatshow, and he wants to he's willing to pay and he rapidly wants to accelerate his development and his career and getting better at copy. So I said, here's your first assignment. Write 50 to 150 bullets by tomorrow. Guess what? If you sit down and that is your task and that's what you do, you're going to get good. That's how I started too. My first assignment was write 100 bullets for this. So I wrote 100 bullets. And then all the person did was grade them with CUB, confusing, unbelievable, or boring. Anyone that wasn't confusing, unbelievable, or boring, then you got graded with the 4 U's. Okay, this is ultra specific, this is useful, this is urgent. Once you pass those 2 thresholds, well, shit, you have a pretty good bullet. If it is not confusing, unbelievable, boring, and it's one of the 4 U's, it's solid, it's good enough. So he basically went through and he graded every single bullet, 100. He did it in like 15 minutes because it's really easy with bullets to really quickly assess and get a synapse, because that's how your prospect is going to be reading your copy as well. Here are your grades. Now revise these 4 of your 100 and then write 400 more. It's not going to produce a spec piece necessarily, but it is going to give you a chance to learn what it takes to be a copywriter. Part of being a copywriter is being able to churn out a bunch of stuff. And also realizing that once your creativity and talent is exhausted, well, that's when the good stuff actually starts coming. Yeah. That's how you start to skill up, once you start to stretch yourself.
That's what happened to Alex last night.
But it's true, and also it gets you writing.
Yeah.
And such a basic piece of advice, but just start writing. And something like that, it gives you such a measurable way to begin. So yeah.
Can you each give a bullet for copy that?
Better than a unique selling proposition. How to use the UMP/S system to stand out in a crowded market. Parentheses, 8-minute video that will be guaranteed to accelerate your conversions. And parentheses, that's the bullet.
That's
and
fantastic.
that just points to Alex's video about that topic, where he specifically speaks about a different way of thinking about things, especially for products that are in a saturated market. Everybody talks about the USP or unique selling proposition. Well, what that bullet says is forget that. There are certain products that don't have that. So you need to have some other framework that Alex gave to patrons. So it makes sense that we would intrigue or provide intrigue that points to that video.
Uncover the 2 value blocks which stop 95% of people from ever earning money with physical products.
Ooh.
Like the silly little mistakes most copywriters make when they make an Upwork profile.
Revealed, the top mistakes new and beginning copywriters make when prospecting, plus how to overcome them with a simple 3-step process.
The whole point of a bullet is to generate intrigue for what is inside of a product that you are trying to sell.
Oh, and the other thing about bullets as well is it only takes one interesting one for a person to want to buy.
Yeah.
That's why you see, 20, 30, 40 on a page, because guess what? If you're scanning it and you see one that's hyper relevant to you, well, I gotta get this course now, even though that was 1/40th of the bullets on the page.
Exactly.
It's a shotgun approach.
Someone asked how much is the Patreon? So that gives us a free plug. So if you head over to patreon.com/the Copy That Show, we have the basic tier, which is $5.99 a month. And that comes with access to all the bonus content.
Bonus content, archives, raw content.
Yeah,
full unedited stream is going to be up there. It's going to be ridiculous. On YouTube, it's going to be edited down to, God, I hope 20 minutes.
We have that tier, and then we have the $19.97 tier, which is premium. And in that's the next level, where basically what we're doing is putting effort into creating proper courses. So the one up right now, and I know that Sean and Luke are working on one, I know Rod will be working on one. The one that's going for me, and these will be side by side, is I'm building an e-commerce store just from scratch and just recording everything, which, there's a bunch of me just at my computer and you're just watching the screen, me going through research and copying and pasting things into a document. But the whole point is this is extremely real. This is exactly how you build an e-commerce store. This isn't a guy sitting in an armchair and being here's all our great results, do this thing. It's what's the point in that? You want all those questions answered, and then I go through actual e-commerce theory and the biggest mistakes that people make, going, hey, dropshipping sounds like a good idea. Oh shit, that's $2,000 gone. And then we've also got the mentorship tier.
The mentorship tier, that's $300 a month,
which is $300 a month, which is
that buys you an hour of all of our time every single week, and we have a specific masterclass where we don't just teach in generalities. We specifically try to solve a specific problem that you are encountering and trying to figure out what you can do to take things to the next level.
And help on projects as well. So
exactly. We have one mentee right now, he has a client who has him on retainer. And so part of what he's doing is like trying to figure out like a marketing strategy for her, a sales strategy for her, things like that. And so we're just there, we're helping him brainstorm. So that's what you get when you pay for the mentorship deal.
Yeah.
Going from junior to intermediate, the biggest piece of advice I would give is to focus on one particular area that you're interested in and pick that out as something that you want to dedicate your practice towards a little bit more diligently. And so, for example, say you're really curious about or interested in doing emails. You don't necessarily have to niche down into only doing emails, but pick something that you can focus on a little bit more intently so you can develop a little bit of a specialization. In that focus, start to think about the things that surround that area. And so instead of just thinking about how you can write better emails, think about, well, what is the process by which people get to my emails? What's the context in which they experience my emails? How can I make those pieces of context a better experience for them? So many things go into the way in which we consume copy that we just don't talk about very often as copywriters. And so once you start to think about those things, a lot of other things will start to click in terms of, okay, well, if I want to become a better copywriter, I actually need to learn some other things. And that will guide that knowledge that Alex is talking about. And once you get to the point at which you understand those other things, I think that starts to set you apart from those people who just kind of know things about copy, but are not experts.
You know only as much as you know, and you can't see what you're doing wrong. If you could see what you were doing wrong, you would do it better. So you've maximized everything that you can do. Now you need outside input from someone with more experience, from someone who gets it, someone who can see beyond just the words, to tell you how to move up to the next level, how to correct the things that you're doing wrong, and how to improve on the things that you're doing right. For me, that moment is when I sent Sean, like when we connected on the Discord for the first time, when I sent Sean some of my stuff, and he was like, this is actually really good. Here's some of the stuff you're doing right. Here's some of the stuff you're doing wrong. And then I knew what to go learn about and what to practice. And that's very much the philosophy that I've got when I'm doing coaching for my writers at AppSumo. I do video breakdowns for them. I'm like, okay, so here's all the stuff you're doing right. This is fantastic. Here are some of the things you can improve on, and here is how to do that. There's no other way to do it. You need someone like that in your life if you're going to be able to improve. Otherwise, you're just taking shots in the dark. And if you're working as a freelancer, you don't have access to tons of company data. You don't have access to tons of testing. There's no way for you to know what is working and what is not working because you're just handing in work. So you need someone like that who's in a senior position over you, whether that's just a friend or you're paying for a mentor, or you've got someone like you're in-house and you've got someone who's a more advanced copywriter to look over your stuff. That is the key for me to unlocking the next level and the level after that and the level after that, all the way until you get to your cap when you become an expert or a master copywriter.
The only caveat or addition that I would add to that is, and I think this is actually where a lot of newbies and juniors get into trouble and how they get persuaded into buying these like really expensive masterclasses, courses, and things like that. Oftentimes that are so advanced and so intense that they don't benefit from it. Mm-hmm. Because like, why would you spend $6,000 on a mentor who's going to tell you, okay, this is what a landing page is.
Yeah.
Okay, this is what an offer looks like. Here's what a bonus is. Here's what price anchoring is. Like, why would you spend money on that when you can literally learn that for free from our videos on youtube.com/copythat, but also from literally any book ever written about copywriting ever. And I would say it's like once you get to the advanced beginner / intermediate stage is the only point where actually getting a mentor is going to be beneficial to you at all. Where if it's one thing I've seen juniors and newbies do very, very often is they'll poop something out onto the page, not even reread it, or like reread it once and like maybe clean it up a little bit. And then they'll say like, hey, can I get a critique on this? And if you ask them like, hey, reread this out loud to yourself, does it sound weird? Can you think of anything that you can do to punch this up? And they go, well, yeah, I guess I could do this. I could try this. I could change this, yada, yada. Well, it's at that point where I know they don't need a critique. They could have made it better on their own. They already had the knowledge. They just didn't take their writing as far as they could. And that means that a critique is not going to be helpful to them at all because they're not going to learn anything from it because all the critique is going to be is telling them stuff that they already know. This has been a good stream.
This has been very fun. This has been great.
Guys, thank you so much for joining on the stream. And thank you all, everyone, for joining on the stream. Just to quickly recap, we talked today about going from beginner to intermediate. And the three main things we focused on is one aspect of that is charging more money and making more money. That brings you up to an intermediate stage. Don't let yourself be in your own way when it comes to that. The second thing is results. As your career progresses and as you do more work, you will gain more results. You can use that to, of course, leverage yourself into better and better paying gigs. And that is going to take you from beginner to intermediate as well. Once you can say, yes, this is how much I sold. These are how many products I sold, things like that. That just comes with time. You know, you're not going to have that coming out of the gate. And the third and final thing is actual competence, which is you get that a number of different ways. Don't waste money on mentorship when it's too early for you to benefit from it. Read widely, cross-pollinate, always be learning, always be understanding, always be looking for what more you can do and where your shortcomings are, especially in the context of what you're trying to become better at. I think that this has been the Copy That Show. I really love and appreciate and admire and respect every single person who tuned into the stream, everyone who's watching this on youtube.com/copythat, and especially, my heart goes out to all of our patrons at patreon.com/thecopythatshow. You guys are the reason why stuff like this can happen and will continue to happen. You don't need to spend money on us. You can get the basics down and start and launch a career for free, either using our content on youtube.com/thecopythat or on your own, reading books and being a nerd. Guys,
Cool.
That was the stream.
That's it.
Noah, have fun with that one.
In terms of bonus access that people get on the Patreon versus what they see on the YouTube, I was like, what if on the Patreon they get this same video, but it's just not censored?
Noah, if you're watching this, can you go back for the whole stream? Literally, I want you to go back and edit the whole stream such that there's just one black bar over this nipple and one black bar over this nipple. All right, guys, that has been a stream. Have a lovely day. Go make some money and have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful life. Take care.
Guys.